The smell of coffee, burnt toast, and the faint, lingering scent of the lavender cleaner. Julia insisted on using it was supposed to mean home. Safety. The bedrock I built my life on. That Tuesday morning. It just smelled like the prelude to the worst moment of my life. I was running late, scrambling for my keys, shouting a half-hearted love you, towards the kitchen, where Julia was likely already setting up for the twins' first lesson. -1-year-old whirlwinds, named Lily and Ben, their energy usually contained within the designated schoolroom at converted sunporch from 9 until noon. My routine was clockwork. Kiss Julia goodbye, ruffle the kids' hair, promise I'd be back for lunch, out the door by 8:45. Except today, my laptop charger had staged a rebellion. I found it tucked behind the couch cushion, victim of Ben's latest fort-building expedition. It was 8:52. I was officially late. Damn it, I muttered, shoving the charger into my bag. The house was unusually quiet. No murmur of Julia explaining fractions, no scrape of chairs, no high-pitched questions, just silence. Maybe they were already deep into reading. A flicker of unease, cold and unwelcome, brushed my spine. I shrugged it off. Probably just started late themselves. I headed towards the sunporch, not to interrupt, just to grab a forgotten water bottle from the side table near the door. My hand was on the cool glass knob when I heard it. Not the sound of learning, not the sound of childhood. A sound that froze the blood in my veins, turned my stomach to lead. A low, throaty laugh. Julia's laugh, but not the bright, open laugh she gave when the kids cracked a terrible joke. This was different, darker, richer, intimate. It was followed by a murmur, too low to decipher words. But the tone got, the tone. Soft, breathy, suggestive. It wasn't directed at a child. And then a man's voice, responding. Connor Davies, the tutor, the supposedly brilliant, patient, safe young man we'd hired 6 months ago to handle the twins' curriculum, while Julia managed the household and her freelance graphic design work. You're driving me crazy, Jules. His voice was a husky whisper that carried through the thin glass pane of the door. Jules. I only called her that sometimes, usually when we were close. Every rational thought short-circuited. My hand clenched on the doorknob, knuckles white. Peering through the slight gap in the curtains I hadn't even realized was there. The scene unfolded like a horrific, slow-motion film. The kids' workbooks were stacked neatly on the small table. Lily's half-finished math sheet lay abandoned. But Julia and Connor weren't at the table. They were over by the far window, partially obscured by a large potted fern Julia loved. Julia was pressed back against the wall, Connor leaning into her, his body angled to cage her in. One of his hands was tangled in her hair, the other rested low on her hip, his thumb tracing a deliberate circle just above the waistband of her yoga pants. Her head was tilted back, eyes closed, a small, secretive smile playing on her lips as he murmured something else against her ear. Her hand rested on his chest, not pushing away, but holding on. The sheer domesticity of it, the sunlight streaming in, the familiar room, the abandoned schoolwork juxtaposed with this raw intimacy was a physical blow. This wasn't a snatched moment, it felt practiced, habitual. The betrayal wasn't a single knife thrust, it was 1,000 shards of glass, embedding themselves in my chest, each carrying a memory. Julia complaining Connor was running late last week. Had she been straightening her clothes? The sudden, intense interest in new lingerie a month back. The way she'd subtly defended him when he'd offhandedly remarked he seemed a little too comfortable in our home. The extra glass of wine she'd started having in the evenings, her eyes sometimes distant. The unexplained to our grocery run last Friday. The pieces, ignored or rationalized away, now clicked together with devastating, sickening clarity. This had been happening in our home, while our children were supposed to be learning, while I was out, trusting, building a life. A white-hot rage, pure and terrifying, surged through me, momentarily eclipsing the crushing pain. I wanted to kick the door in, roar, smash my fist into Connor's smug face, but a colder, more paralyzing thought sliced through the fury. The kids. Where were Lily and Ben? The silence, it wasn't just a lack of lesson sounds. The room was empty except for them. My blood ran cold. Had they sent the kids away? Given them iPads in their rooms? The sheer, calculated risk of it, the utter disregard for our children potentially walking in it was monstrous. I didn't kick the door. I didn't roar. Instead, with a trembling hand that felt detached from my body, I slowly, silently, turned the knob and pushed the door open just wide enough to step through. The soft click of the latch snapping shut sounded like a gunshot in the sudden, suffocating silence. Julia's eyes flew open, wide with shock and instant, dawning horror. Connor jerked back as if electrocuted, stumbling slightly, his face draining of all color. The cozy, illicit bubble they'd been inhabiting burst violently. Hardin. Julia gasped, her voice strangled. She pushed Connor away with a frantic shove, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh God, Hardin. It's not what, Julia. My voice came out flat, dead. A stranger's voice. I looked past her panic, past Connor's terrified stammering, focusing on the abandoned math sheet. Not what it looks like, because what it looks like is my wife, in the room where our children learn, with her tongue practically down the throat of the man we pay to educate them. I took a step forward, my gaze locking onto Connor. He looked like a cornered animal. All his previous confidence evaporated. Where are my children? There. They're upstairs, Julia stammered, tears welling. In Ben's room. They finished their independent reading early. We stepped out for a moment. A moment. I let out a harsh, humorless bark that wasn't a laugh. Looked like quite the moment. Looked like you were getting a very thorough lesson yourself, Julia. Advanced placement, maybe. The sarcasm dripped like acid. I couldn't stop it. The pain was transmuting into something vicious. How long, Connor? How long have you been giving my wife extracurricular activities? Hardin, please, Connor started, holding up his hands placatingly, taking another step back. It was a mistake. A stupid, one time. Don't. Julia cut him off sharply, her eyes pleading with him to shut up. It was too late. That single sentence confirmed it wasn't isolated panic. It was an affair. Planned. Repeated. Hardin, let's go talk. Please. Not here. The kids. I echoed, my voice rising despite my effort to control it. You thought about the kids when you were letting him touch you like that. In this room, while you were supposed to be supervising their education. The image of Lily or Ben innocently wandering in, seeking help with a spelling word, and seeing that, it ignited a fresh wave of fury. Get out, I said, my voice dangerously low, directed solely at Connor. Get out of my house. Now, if I see you within a mile of this property, within a mile of my children, ever again, I will make sure you regret it in ways you can't imagine. Connor didn't need telling twice. He scrambled, grabbing his worn leather satchel, not even looking at Julia, muttering a terrified, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, as he practically ran past me, his shoulder brushing mine in his haste to escape. The front door slammed a moment later, the sound echoing through the suddenly cavernous house. The silence that followed was thicker, heavier. Julia stood frozen by the window, tears now streaming freely down her face, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if holding herself together. She looked small, shattered, a world away from the woman pressed against the wall moments before. The woman I thought I knew. The woman he'd built a life with for 12 years. Hardin, she whispered, her voice raw. Don't, I said, the single word cracking like ice. I couldn't bear to hear her voice. Not yet. The smell of lavender cleaner was suddenly nauseating. The cheerful sunshine in the room felt like a mockery. Every object the kids' crayon drawings pinned to the bulletin board, Julia's favorite reading chair, the fern Connor had pinned her against was tainted. Where are the kids exactly? In Ben's room, she repeated, her voice trembling. They have their tablets. They're playing a game. They shouldn't have heard anything. The implication that we might have been loud was another twist of the knife. I need to see them, I stated, my voice still flat. I needed to see their innocent faces, untouched by this poison. needed the anchor of their reality to stop the world from spinning off its axis. I turned and walked out of the sunporch, leaving Julia standing there, a monument to our ruined life. I didn't look back. My legs felt like lead as I climbed the stairs, each step echoing the thudding of my heart. The cheerful blue door of Ben's room was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The scene inside was heartbreakingly normal. Ben was sprawled on his stomach on the rug, deeply engrossed in some brightly colored racing game on his tablet, tongue poking out in concentration. Lily sat cross-legged on his bed, her own tablet propped on her knees, watching a cartoon, occasionally giggling. The innocent sounds of their digital worlds filled the room, a stark, brutal contrast to the horror downstairs. They were safe, oblivious. For now. Daddy, Ben yelled without looking up, narrowly missing a virtual crash. You're late. Yeah, buddy. I managed, my voice thick. I leaned against the door frame, suddenly weak. Got held up. You guys okay? Finished your work? Yep. Lily chirped, finally looking up, her big brown eyes wide and clear. Connor said we did super good on reading, so we got extra screen time. He's nice. Her simple praise was a fresh stab wound. Yeah, I choked out, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass on my face. He's something. I couldn't stay. The sight of them, so pure, so trusting, knowing what festered beneath the surface of their home, was unbearable. Listen, I forgot something super important for work. Gotta run back downstairs for a sec. Be good, okay? Love you, Daddy. They chorused, already drifting back into their screens. I closed the door softly, leaning my forehead against the cool wood for a second, drawing in ragged breaths. The protective fury surged again, mingled with a profound, soul-crushing grief. How could she? How could they? The violation wasn't just of our marriage vows, it was of our family's sanctuary, of the trust our children placed in the adults who were supposed to guard their world. The sunporch wasn't just a room, it was the heart of our homeschool, the place where their minds were nurtured, and Shed turned it into a cheap motel room with the tutor. Walking back downstairs felt like descending into a nightmare. Julia hadn't moved from the sunporch. She stood exactly where he'd left her, still crying silently, her shoulders shaking. The abandoned math sheet mocked me from the table. I stopped in the doorway, unable to cross the threshold into that space again. Talk, I said, the words scraping my throat raw. Start talking, Julia. And for the love of God, don't lie to me. Not anymore. She flinched as if it struck her. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, a futile gesture against the flood of tears. Hardin, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Her voice was a broken whisper. It just happened. Bullshit, I spat, the venom surprising even me. Things like this don't just happen. Not in your children's classroom. Not with the tutor. How long? She looked down, twisting her wedding ring, my grandmother's ring, around her finger. A gesture he'd seen 1,000 times when she was nervous. Now it felt like desecration. A few months. Months. The word exploded from me. Months of this. Months of him being in our home, teaching our kids, while you were. I couldn't even say it. The images assaulted me. Stolen kisses, while the kids were focused on worksheets. Touches under the table. Longer absences explained away. The meticulous deception involved was staggering. How did you even? Where? When the kids were here. It wasn't always like that, she stammered, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. At first, it was just talking. He's easy to talk to, Hardin. He listens. He gets the homeschooling stress, the isolation. Her justification ignited fresh rage. Oh, he gets it. I took a step forward, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I didn't. I wasn't here, working my ass off to pay for this house, for him, so you could pursue the freelance work you wanted, so we could give the kids this life. Was I not listening enough? Not getting it? Was that the problem? My voice cracked. Or was it just convenient? Was he just here, Julia, young, attentive, right under your nose, while I was out earning the money that paid his fucking salary? It wasn't like that. she cried, a flash of defiance in her tear-filled eyes. You've been distant, hardened, stressed, always working late, always tired. When you are home, you're checked out, on your phone, or just not present. Connor was present. He made me feel seen, heard, wanted. Each word was a calculated blow, shifting blame, excusing the inexcusable. So it's my fault. The disbelief was almost laughable, if it weren't so devastating. My fault you spread your legs for the tutor. My fault you risked our children walking in on you. My fault you lied to my face every single day for months. The magnitude of the lies hit me anew. Every long grocery run, every quick coffee with Sarah, every time she seemed a little flushed or distracted. All carefully constructed to hide this. Did you ever think about them? About Lily and Ben? What if they'd walked in? What then, Julia? How would you explain that life lesson? She crumpled then, the defiance gone, replaced by raw shame. She sank onto the small sofa usually reserved for reading time with the kids, burying her face in her hands, her body racked with sobs. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think you'd ever find out. I thought I could control it, stop it, but you didn't stop it, I stated coldly. You didn't control it. You let it happen. Here, in our home. I looked around the sunporch, the cheerful space now irrevocably stained. The fern, the wall, the table where my children learned. You turned their safe place into your playground. The disgust was overwhelming. I want you to leave. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with fresh terror. What? Hardin? No. Please. Where will I go? The kids. The kids are my priority right now, I said, my voice trembling with the effort to stay controlled, keeping them safe, keeping their world as intact as possible. And you cannot be here. Not now. Not with this hanging in the air. I gestured vaguely around the room, encompassing the betrayal. Go to your mother's. Go to Sarah's. I don't care. But you need to pack a bag, and you need to go. Now. Hardin, please, she begged, scrambling to her feet, reaching out a trembling hand towards me. Don't do this. We can talk. We can fix this. Fix this. I recoiled from her touch as if burned. How, Julia? How do you fix this? Months of lies. Months of betrayal. With the tutor. In our home. During the kids' lessons. The absurdity, the sheer, breathtaking violation of it all, crashed over me again. There is no fixing this. Not now. Maybe not ever. Get out. I saw the finality register in her eyes. The pleading stopped. A mask of numb resignation settled over her features, broken only by the silent tears still tracking down her cheeks. She nodded once, a jerky, mechanical movement. Okay. She whispered. Okay. She walked past me, her shoulders slumped, the scent of her shampoo, the one I used to bury my face in now just another reminder of loss. She moved like a ghost through the living room towards the stairs, presumably to pack. I stood alone in the hallway, the silence roaring in my ears. The smell of coffee and burnt toast lingered. The house felt alien, hostile. The foundation had crumbled, revealing a gaping chasm beneath. I walked numbly into the kitchen, the sight of my rushed goodbye just an hour ago, a lifetime ago. My gaze fell on the small, framed photo on the counter. All four of us, last summer at the beach, grinning, sunburned, carefree. The happiness in that picture felt like a cruel joke, a lie preserved in glass. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the outline of Julia's smiling face. Who was that woman? The one in the photo, or the one pressed against the wall? Or were they both facets of a person I never truly knew? The pain was a physical ache, a crushing weight on my chest. The rage simmered, a dangerous undercurrent. But above it all, drowning everything else, was a profound, debilitating sense of loss. Loss of my wife, loss of the future we'd planned, loss of the sanctity of our home. And beneath that, a terrifying question. How do I tell Lily and Ben that the safe, predictable world Mama helped create is gone? That the nice tutor who helped them with their reading won't be coming back? That Daddy's world has shattered into a million unrecognizable pieces? The sound of a suitcase wheel scraping on the hardwood floor upstairs jolted me back. She was leaving. My wife was leaving because she'd chosen the tutor in our children's classroom. The reality was too grotesque, too immense to fully grasp. I sank into a kitchen chair, the photo still clutched in my hand, staring blankly at the wall. The fight had momentarily drained out of me, leaving only the hollow, echoing pain of absolute betrayal. The journey through hell had only just begun, and I had no map, no compass, only the shattered remains of a life I thought I knew. The silence upstairs was broken only by the soft click of the bedroom door closing. She was packing. The life we'd built together was being dismantled, one folded blouse, one pair of shoes at a time, and I had to figure out how to face our children when she walked out the door. The sounds from upstairs were muffled thumps, the scrape of a drawer, the soft zip of a suitcase. Each noise was a hammer blow against the fragile shell of numbness was trying to maintain. Sitting at the kitchen table, that damned beach photo cold in my hands, I felt utterly hollowed out. The rage had receded, leaving behind a vast, icy tundra of pain and disbelief. Months, she'd said months. How many breakfasts had I eaten across from her, oblivious? How many nights had I held her, kissed her, made love to her, while she carried the secret of Connor's touch, his whispers, right here under our roof? The deception was a labyrinth, and I was lost in its suffocating corridors. The creak of the stairs announced her descent. I didn't look up. My eyes stayed fixed on the fake wood grain of the table, tracing patterns that meant nothing. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, a medium-sized rolling suitcase beside her, a large tote bag slung over her shoulder. She looked impossibly small, dwarfed by her luggage and the enormity of what she'd done. Her eyes were red-rimmed, puffy, her face pale and drawn. She clutched the strap of her tote like a lifeline. Hardin. Her voice was a fragile thread. Just go, Julia. My voice was flat, devoid of inflection. I couldn't muster anger anymore, not directed at her in this moment. There was only the crushing weight of finality. Before the kids come down, I'll tell them something. Later. What? What plausible lie can cover this nuclear fallout? She hesitated, shifting her weight. Can I say goodbye to them? Please. The request sent a fresh jolt of pain through me. The thought of her touching them, hugging them, while the scent of Connor might still linger on her skin, while her lips that had kissed him moments ago would brush their innocent cheeks. It was unbearable. No, I said, the word sharper than I intended. Not like this. Not now. They don't need to see you upset. They don't need the confusion. Just go. Text me later. We'll figure out contact. The word contact tasted like ash. Contact with the mother of my children. The concept was alien, horrifying. She flinched again, a wounded animal. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. She didn't argue. She just stood there for another agonizing moment, her gaze fixed on me, pleading, remorseful, desperate. I refused to meet it. Looking at her felt like staring into the sun, the blindness painful and revealing nothing but the damage. Finally, with a soft, choked sob, she turned, grabbed the handle of her suitcase, and wheeled it towards the front door. The wheels rumbled ominously on the hardwood. The click of the latch, the soft sigh of the door opening, a pause, then the definitive, echoing thud of it closing behind her. Silence, not just quiet, a profound, deafening silence that pressed him from all sides, heavy with absence and betrayal. She was gone. Julia was gone. My wife had walked out the door because he'd caught her with another man in our children's classroom. The absurdity of it was almost laughable. Almost. Instead, a wave of nausea washed over me, so intense I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, breathing shallowly until it passed. The familiar kitchen, the coffee maker, the fruit bowl, the kids' artwork stuck with magnets to the fridge, felt like a stage set after the actors had fled, leaving behind only the props of a life that no longer existed. Upstairs, a burst of laughter from Ben's room pierced the silence, innocent, oblivious. The sound was a physical tug, pulling me back from the edge of the abyss. The kids. Focus on the kids. That was the only compass point left. I pushed myself up from the chair, my legs shaky. I walked to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, the shock helping to ground me slightly. I stared at my reflection in the window, above the sink. My face was pale, eyes shadowed and hollow. I looked like a man who'd stared into the heart of darkness. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I headed back upstairs. I paused outside Ben's door, plastering on what I hoped was a neutral expression. Just forgot something for work. Everything's fine. Mama had to go out suddenly. Lies. But necessary lies. For now. I pushed the door open. "Hey, monsters," I said, forcing a lightness into my tone that felt like broken glass in my throat. "Who's winning?" "Me," Ben yelled, still glued to his tablet. "In beating all the levels." Lily looked up. "Daddy, where's Mama?" She said she'd check my drawing. My heart clenched. Oh, she had to run out for a little bit. Something came up with Grandma. "Shall check it later." "Okay, sweet pea." The lead tasted vile. "How about we take a break from screens? Maybe build that epic Lego castle we talked about." The distraction worked. Lego trumped tablets. For the next 2 hours, I existed in a surreal bubble of normalcy. I knelt on Ben's floor, sorting bricks, helping Lily find the perfect turret piece, listening to their excited chatter. I laughed at Ben's silly jokes, admired Lily's meticulous construction. I was present, engaged, the picture of a devoted dad. Inside, I was screaming. Every touch, every smile felt like a performance. The ghost of Julia's betrayal haunted every corner of the room, every cheerful Lego block. She chose him, over us, over this. The thought was a constant, corrosive whisper beneath the surface. When the castle was declared sufficiently epic, "It needs a dragon." "Daddy," I suggested lunch. Making sandwiches felt like an alien ritual. My hands moved automatically bread, peanut butter, jam, while my mind replayed the scene in the sunporch over a sickening loop. Connor's hand on her hip, her head tilted back, the low murmur, the look on her face, the image of the abandoned math sheet lying on the table, while I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, fighting another wave of nausea. We ate at the kitchen table. The silence was different now, punctuated only by the crunch of apples and Ben's enthusiastic chewing. Lily was quiet, thoughtful. "Daddy," she asked softly, pushing her half-eaten sandwich away, "is Connor coming back tomorrow?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I carefully set my own sandwich down. "No, honey," I said, keeping my voice steady with immense effort. Connor won't be coming back anymore." "Why?" Ben demanded, his mouth full. "He was cool. He let us play games when we finished early." "Yeah," Lily echoed, her brow furrowed with innocent confusion. "He was nice. Did he get a different job?" The simplicity of their questions was excruciating. They had no framework for betrayal, for adult lies, for the destruction of their family's foundation. "Something like that, buddy," I managed. "He found another tutoring job. Further away. More lies, piling up like toxic waste. Well, figure out your lessons, okay? Maybe Daddy will help for a bit." The thought of setting foot in that sunporch, of trying to teach fractions where my wife had been unfaithful, made my skin crawl. The afternoon crawled by. We played board games. We watched a movie. I was a ghost dad, going through the motions, my mind 1,000 miles away, trapped in the horror of discovery and the terrifying uncertainty of the future. Every mundane task wiping a spill, tying a shoelace felt imbued with a terrible new significance. This is my life now. Just me and them. Picking up the pieces she shattered. When bedtime finally arrived, the routine felt like both a lifeline and a torment. Baths, pajamas, stories. Julia's absence was a palpable void. Lily asked for her twice. Ben, exhausted, barely noticed. Tucking them in, kissing their foreheads, whispering "I love you," the words felt heavier, more desperate than ever before. Their trust in me, their anchor in this suddenly stormy world, felt like an unbearable responsibility. How could I protect them from a pain I hadn't even begun to process myself? "Night, Daddy," Lily murmured, snuggling her stuffed rabbit. "Tell Mama I love her when she gets home." The innocent request was a knife to the heart. "I will, sweetheart," I choked out, smoothing her hair. Sleep tight. I closed their doors softly, leaning against the hallway wall in the dim light, the silence of the house pressing in again. The performance was over. The mask could come off. The raw, ragged pain surged back, overwhelming. I stumbled downstairs, not to the living room, not to the kitchen, but towards the sunporch. I had to face it. I had to reclaim it. Somehow, for the kids. I flipped on the light. The room looked exactly as it had that morning, yet utterly transformed. The fern stood innocently by the window. The kids' table held abandoned workbooks and crayons. The small sofa where Shed sat crying. The wall where Connor had pinned her. Every object screamed the truth. The air itself felt thick with the memory of their betrayal. I walked over to the wall, tracing the spot where her head had rested. I could almost feel the residual heat, the ghost of their illicit embrace. My gaze fell on Connor's usual chair. A surge of pure, unadulterated hatred, hot and sharp, sliced through the numbness. I strode over, grabbed the back of the simple wooden chair, and with a guttural cry born of anguish and fury, I lifted it and slammed it against the wall. The crack of wood against drywall was shockingly loud in the quiet house. One of the chair legs snapped. I did it again. And again. Splinters flew. The once neat wall now bore ugly gashes. I kept smashing until the chair was little more than kindling, my breath coming in ragged gasps, sweat stinging my eyes. The violence was pointless, cathartic only for a fleeting second, leaving behind only wreckage and the echo of my own brokenness. Panting, I dropped the shattered remains, leaning my forehead against the cool, damaged wall. The anger bled away as quickly as it came, leaving only the hollow, aching void. I slid down the wall, sitting on the floor amidst the debris of the chair and the invisible debris of my life. The silence roared. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. Julia. Greater than made it to Moms. Hardin, I'm so sorry. More than you can ever know. Please can we talk tomorrow? About the kids. About everything. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. Sorry. Such a small, inadequate word for the cataclysm Shed unleashed. Talking. About the kids. About the logistics of destruction. About dividing holidays, weekends, the remnants of trust. About explaining to an 8-year-old why Mommy doesn't live here anymore. The sheer, overwhelming magnitude of it crushed me. I couldn't deal with her. Not now. Not yet. I silenced the phone and shoved it back in my pocket, leaving her message unanswered in the digital void. Hours passed, or minutes. Time had lost all meaning. I sat on the cold floor of the sunporch, surrounded by the physical and emotional wreckage, staring blankly at the cheerful alphabet border that ran along the top of the walls. Lily had helped put that up. The room was saturated with memories of our family, now irrevocably poisoned. How could I ever let the kids back in here? How could I ever be in here without seeing them? Without feeling the profound violation of the one place that was supposed to be sacred, safe, dedicated solely to their growth and learning? The practicalities started to seep through the fog of pain. Tomorrow, I had to call in sick to work. No way I could function. I had to find what? A new tutor. Eventually, yes. But first, I had to navigate the minefield of telling the kids something resembling the truth, or at least a truth they could digest. Mama is staying at Grandma's for a while. Mama and Daddy need some time apart. Vague, terrifying words for small minds. I had to figure out meals, laundry, the endless minutiae of solo parenting I'd never fully shouldered, and looming over it all, the spectre of lawyers, separation agreements, custody battles, the destruction of everything we'd built. Exhaustion, deeper than any he'd ever known, finally pulled me under. It wasn't sleep, more a state of numb suspension. I must have drifted off, slumped against the wall, because the next thing I knew, weak morning light was filtering through the sunporch blinds. My neck was stiff, my back aching from the hard floor. The shattered chair lay where I'd left it. The gashes in the wall were stark in the dawnlight, a visible manifestation of the invisible damage. I pushed myself up, groaning. The smell of the room paper, crayons, dust, and something else, something faintly sour like old fear, turned my stomach. I needed coffee. I needed to check on the kids. I needed to face the day. Walking back into the kitchen felt like entering a battlefield the morning after. The cheerful beach photo still sat on the table where he'd left it. The sight of Julia's smiling face, frozen in a moment of pure, untarnished happiness, ignited a fresh wave of agony. Before I could think, I snatched it up. The glass felt cold and smooth. I looked into her eyes in the photo, those eyes that had held such warmth, such love, the eyes that had looked at Connor with what? Desire, guilt, something else. The disconnect was too much. The lie was too big. With a strangled cry that was part sob, part raw, I hurled the frame against the tiled floor beside the sink. It shattered with a spectacular crash, glass exploding outwards, the photo skittering across the tiles, coming to rest face down in a spray of fragments. I stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the destruction. The smiling family frozen in time was gone, replaced by jagged shards and the blank back of cardboard. It felt symbolic, irrevocable. Our happy past was shattered, just like the glass. There was no putting it back together. The sound of small feet padding on the stairs made me freeze. "Daddy," Lily's sleepy voice called. What broke? I quickly kicked some of the larger glass shards under the cabinet with my foot, my heart pounding. "Nothing, sweetie," I called back, forcing calm into my voice. "Just drop something. Go back to bed for a few minutes." "Okay. Daddy's making breakfast." I heard her hesitate, then the soft pad of her feet retreating. I leaned against the counter, closing my eyes, taking deep, shaky breaths. The performance had to start again. The protective lie, the shield against the truth, the slow, agonizing process of building a new reality from the ruins of the old. I looked down at the overturned photo on the floor. Julia's handwritten note on the back, visible through the broken frame, glared up at me. "Best day ever. Love you all forever." Forever had ended at 8:52 yesterday morning. Now, there was only the devastating, uncharted territory of after. The journey through hell wasn't over. It had just dawned, cold and harsh, on the first day of the rest of my broken life. And somewhere, in a house miles away, Julia was waking up to her own version of hell. A hell of her own making. The tutor was gone, banished. The marriage was shattered. The home was violated. The children were waiting, innocent and trusting, for a father who felt more lost and shattered than they could ever imagine. The silence of the house was no longer empty. It was filled with the deafening echo of betrayal, and the terrifying, fragile hope that somehow, for their sake, I could find a way through the wreckage, one excruciating step at a time.